let's get into the dark side. How about the Raiders?
The Raiders.
Yeah, Raiders.
Yeah, so let's get into them. Yeah, so I mean, to start the breakdown for the Raiders, obviously we'll start with the quarterbacks. Um, it's a pretty obvious group. You have Jimmy Garoppolo at the top, although we are still kind of in limbo, right? we're, we're in limbo right now, waiting for him to get healthy and pass a physical. If he doesn't, and he ends up not starting, then we can just stop the breakdowns right now. Like it doesn't matter, you know. Um, and I mean, we were earlier in this episode. You know, you were talking about how coming out of last off season, he was coming in injured. You know, this is the second year in a row that he couldn't even like pass a physical coming out of an off season. It's like, uh, this can't be a long term solution. You know, um, they
Some
have
people
to
have
get
all
it.
the luck.
He was born with glass bones and paper skin. Oh
Hey,
my
no, that's
god,
kind of
dude.
fucked up. But Jimmy, I hope that you heal well. Uh, I hope that you're able to pass the physical because I'm honestly looking forward to Jimmy Garoppolo playing this season. I
I'm
want to see what he looks like without Kyle Shanahan's offense. And yeah, he'll be returning to the Josh McDaniels offense that he had in New England. Uh, Probably slightly different because I don't think he would run the exact same thing, that he ran on the Patriots because you got different personnel and you kind of have to cater your offense to what you got. But yeah, I think it's Jimmy's spot or Aiden O'Connell. You're being thrown into the fucking fire.
yeah, yeah. It really just, I think the season hinges on Garoppolo. I mean, I'll get back to the breakdown. It's just, you know, it if he comes back, he plays, and he clearly remembers the offense, and he is, exceeds expectations. He is efficient. Okay, we might do some things. We have these playmakers on offense that can help him succeed. Um, we'll get into the defense another day, and I'm not too sure about how they're going to play, but I have some hope that they can be better than last season. I just don't know how much better. But to continue on quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo won. Right now, I'd say Brian Hoyer is the second string quarterback. He's probably leading, these camps, the mini camp, and going into training camp, he'll probably be the leading quarterback. But when it comes time to play real football in week one of the regular season, I don't see him being the top backup for this team. I see that being the current third quarterback, at least to me, Aiden O'Connell, the fourth round pick. I, I might be wrong, but um, in this year's draft.
Let
And
me let
then
me look up when O'Connell was drafted.
cool. And then the final quarterback on the roster right now is Chase Garbers, who was an undrafted free agent last year and stuck around. I think he kind of switched between practice squad and actually being on the roster here and there last season.
O'Connell was a fourth round pick.
Okay, cool. Um, and yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, Aiden O'Connell is probably the most interesting guy other than Garoppolo. I've heard great things about Hoyer as far as helping the team, in like prepping and game planning and such. But if he has to hit the field, um, I might have to hit my pillow. I because that's not going to be it's not going to be good. So
Are
we'll
you
see.
sure?
I'm
It
pretty
might be
sure.
good. No, just playing. No, it's not going to be good at all if Brian Hoyer has to play any downs of football for the Raiders this year, any
Yeah,
meaningful downs.
no.
Um, and I mean, did you want to move on?
Yeah, we can move on to running backs.
Yeah. All right.
So at the top you have Josh Jacobs, and we talked about him earlier. He hasn't signed his franchise tag. Probably going through contract negotiations right now, and we'll see. I expect him on the team this season. You don't just let they can't let him walk, so you would have to trade him. You don't trade the league leading rusher, in my opinion, unless you can get a haul like was it the Cowboys got from the Vikings for, I forget the guy's name, but there was a big running back trade back in
Herschel Walker.
Yeah. If you could do something like that, cool. But in today's NFL, that's not happening. So I would just bring him back. Behind Josh Jacobs, you have Zamir White, the second-year running back, who didn't get as much playing time as I expected last season. But when he did, I liked what I saw. I like him as the main backup to Jacobs. I'd like to see him progress and get more touches this season. Next, you have Amir Abdullah, who's more of a pass-catching running back. And then you have Brandon Bolden, who's a longtime mainstay in Josh McDaniels' system.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Britton Brown. I think he was a former 7th-round pick, maybe 2 years ago, but it might have been last season. I think it was last year, yeah. So drafted by McDaniels, but ended up being a practice squad guy. Then you have Austin Walter, who played a lot in the preseason last year, and Sincere McCormick, who was an undrafted free agent. I'm pretty sure he's a pretty speedy guy, but he was immediately injured last offseason in camp. So I think this is probably his make or break offseason.
Mm-hmm.
And then at fullback, all I see is Jacob Johnson. Second-year fullback with us. I can't tell you how long he's been in the league, but he was with the Patriots before, so he's another Josh McDaniels guy. And I liked him last year from what I saw.
Yeah. As a person who, doesn't I guess see a lot of these other running backs, it may not mean a bunch to me. All I know is that if Josh Jacobs isn't ready to go, because for contract negotiations or anything, Zamir White better be ready because he is going to be used a lot. Whoever the running back is, I think is going to be probably the workhorse.
Yeah, I think some people might take this the wrong way or find this to be counterintuitive, but I think if the Raiders, and I really do hope that they do, if the Raiders sign Josh Jacobs to hopefully a good and fair deal on both ends, but if it's a long-term deal, I hope that Zamir White gets more work because it would be the worst. It'd be reminiscent of Derek Carr going down in 2016 if Josh Jacobs went down in the first year of his, knock on wood, in the first year of his new contract. That would be catastrophic for this team. Signing a running back to probably a highly guaranteed deal, and then he goes down, that's not a good feeling. So I'd like to see more. Let me tell you,
that's one of the main reasons why you don't pay running backs because they are high. It's a high risk position, and you're going to be eating away draft capital. Honestly, if there was no such thing as a salary cap, by all means, pay them whatever the hell they want or whatever they're going to need in order to fulfill their obligations and be with the team. And, if you want to make them a made man, make them a made man. We don't live in that world. There's just some people that as soon as they get their deal, they're not hungry anymore. I think in Rocky 3, Mickey was told Rocky that he became civilized. And he said the worst thing for a fighter is them becoming civilized. And, I think that kind of holds true in the NFL too, because, there's a whole bunch of players. As soon as they get paid, they're not who they were before they got paid.
Yeah.
Because, you just got the bag. It just feels good to go out, spend money. And
also, once you get that bag and like, if I get injured, this gets tarnished. Not tarnished, but, like, the things that aren't guaranteed, I will not get, most likely, So I think once you get that bag and it's secured, it's like, I'm not going to go as hard. Like Jacobs last year, like, if we're being honest, Jacobs last season, he gets his 5th-year option declined. And then what does he do? He goes out and has his
He
best
fucking
career
went
year.
hard.
He was the leading rusher in the NFL. And I think those two things probably coincide. Do I think Josh Jacobs can't do it again? No, I think he can. But if he gets a big contract, do I think he will? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think Jacobs, since he has the background of like, coming from nothing, I think it would still probably mean a lot to him.
Yeah.
But you never know if he might be like, well, now I can finally, now that I've got my generational wealth, I can finally protect myself. Jacobs doesn't strike me as that kind of player, but you never know with these guys sometimes.
He plays hard, and he seems like the type of guy who really does lead by example, like on the field, So, and I think he's prideful, like as far as his craft, So I'm not trying to say I think he's that type of guy. It's just you also have to protect yourself,
Yeah, because
So.
like, you're working so hard when you're not when you don't have that guaranteed like big super big contract in the NFL. You're working so hard so that way you can get it. You want you're looking to make that money because the average NFL career I think lasts 3 years. Like most people don't even get that second contract. So if you can bust your ass so that way you can get that contract, then afterwards I can totally see why you're like, you know what? I got paid. What more is there left? I have to protect myself for the future because, I mean, unless you've been sleeping under a rock this whole time, football is a very physical sport. It's terrible for your body. If you look at like what's going on with Deion Sanders, he might lose a foot. And I think that might have to do with him playing on injuries while he was a player, or I don't know if it has anything to do with that. I just heard that it has to do with the fact that like, he pushed himself throughout his career.
Well, I mean, yeah, I didn't really I didn't have the chance to look into that or anything, so I wouldn't know. But yeah, I did hear that, and that's a horrible predicament, And it kind of, what you just said reminds me of this guy played in a very different time, I think, even than Deion Sanders. But like, in today's NFL, I think they have a lot more rules and regulations against players playing injured and such. But you never, I mean, I've also heard the stories of players just getting, hey, shoot me up, like inject me with something, some sort of painkiller, and I'll be right back out there. You've heard of like Ronnie Lott cutting off his finger. The player I think of is Jim Otto, legendary center for the Raiders. He has at least one of his lower legs
amputated.
Yeah.
Damn, I didn't know that.
I should probably look it up before I go saying any more, but
yeah. If not, it'll make a really funny. It'll make a really funny thumbnail if he doesn't. Let's just say he doesn't have an amputation. It's like, you know what? It's not that funny now that I think about it. But,
moving on.
Yeah, moving on.
For reference, I searched it up. On August 1st, 2007, ESPN has an article that says Raiders legend Otto undergoes right leg amputation. So I don't know if it's both legs, but for sure the right leg. So, I mean, he was a center every play. I mean, all offensive linemen kind of have like that 3-point stance or whatnot, So
yeah.
But I mean, he played hard. So yeah.
I mean, that's sad. Like if you asked me, like, I mean, don't ask me because I've never been in that situation, but I think it would be an interesting question to ask Jim Otto. Like if he could do it again, would he push himself as hard, or try to do something to prevent that leg amputation, even if it
Yeah.
meant sacrificing some of his earnings in his career, which was
Mhm.
nothing compared to what it is now. But
Yeah.
I'm wondering if he would make that trade, because like for me personally, I would rather still be walking. I don't think I can put a price on any of my limbs.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I can't imagine like losing my sight or hearing, and walking is another one of those sorts of, things that we just take for granted, and then once it's
Yeah,
gone, it's like it's life changing, So,
yeah. So for those of you at home, appreciate what you have,
yeah.
because it could be gone.
Yeah. So next up, do we have the tight ends or wide receivers?
We have the
Wide receivers.
wide receivers.
All right. So at the top, we have Philip Dorsett.
Are you no?
We have Devontae Adams.
No, I know.
Yeah. Oh, I think I got you that time.
Yeah, no, I was like Philip
Yeah.
Dorsett, and
Yeah.
then I was like, it kicked in. I'm like, man, you guys wide receivers sucked. Like,
Yeah.
no disrespect to Philip Dorsett, but it's like,
If that's your best
I was
receiver,
not.
that's not good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, to me, this is probably the deepest position on the Raiders. I find the wide receiver position to be, I wouldn't say stacked, but like very good. It's not like so, well, it is top heavy, but it's not like, say, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Like the number 2 isn't like a T. Higgins, but Devontae Adams at the top. That's all I need to say. I'd still argue he is the best receiver in football right now. You can argue about Justin Jefferson, or you might say Cooper Kupp, but I think from what I saw last season from Devontae, I can't say anybody else is better than him.
I can't.
Number 2.
I say Justin Jefferson is better.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's probably valid. I got to see more of Devontae, and it's like he made catches and he runs routes that I've never seen before. I mean, the no look one-handed catch in front of Jalen Ramsey was just hilariously good. There was a sideline end zone touchdown grab against the Niners that was just disgusting. But yeah, I mean,
I'm not saying Devontae is not good. He's an excellent football player.
Yeah,
I just don't think that currently, right now, he's the best wide receiver in the NFL. That's all I'm saying.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I was just gonna say, like,
he's up there.
Justin Jefferson also, like, the stuff he does is insane. That catch against the Bills is like, just put a picture of that and put it in the Hall of Fame. Like, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, it's a good debate, but I can say Devontae Adams at the very least deserves to be in that conversation for being the top receiver in football still.
Mm-hmm.
Your number 2 receiver, I'll just kind of call him the number 2 receiver, Jakobi Meyers. I guess some kind of a recurring theme with the Raiders with Josh McDaniels, and maybe this is also a Dave Ziegler thing, is you kind of mentioned it for the Niners and their offensive line. This regime for the Raiders really likes I just
bullies.
lost the word. I like bullies, yeah, in football, but flexibility.
Yeah.
Being able to play multiple positions.
God damn it! You forgetting the word made me forget the word. The word is fuck. Just keep talking, keep saying your point, and then I'll remember the word.
Yeah, but basically you have Devontae Adams, Jakobi Meyers, Hunter Renfrow. Hunter Renfrow is pretty much an exclusive slot receiver, but Jakobi Meyers can play outside and inside. Same goes for Devontae.
Versatile.
Thank you. Yes, versatility. That's what the Raiders are looking for, because not many of their positions, some of them, but not many of them, are top heavy. So if you can have versatile players that can take up multiple positions, and that helps, and that also helps in maybe having less players at a certain position when it comes to the 53-man roster, because you have one guy that can play all the positions, like a
Mhm.
Feliciano on the Niners. So Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers, I could see them kind of switching around here and there. And then there's Hunter Renfrow in the slot. Next, you have DeAndre Carter, free agent from the Chargers. I think he was also a guy that played a lot in the slot for them, but it makes sense because they have Keenan Allen and Mike Williams on the outside. So, and then Philip Dorsett, as I joked. Keelan Cole, excuse me. Next,
Was he
and
on the
this
team last year?
he was on the team last year. He was mostly on the practice squad, but he did play on the regular season a few times. He had the big touchdown catch against the Patriots that some people didn't think was a touchdown catch. Many people.
I think I remember something about that.
Yeah.
It definitely rings a bell.
Yeah. And then and Philip Dorsett, by the way, was a free agent signing this year. Deep, fast running, deep
A
threat
deep threat.
receiver. Yeah. Cam Sims is the next receiver. I had never heard of him. We signed him in free agency, and I went on Twitter and I was just like, I just want to know who this guy is. And the insiders that tweeted it, I looked at the comments and the quote tweets, and it was all these Washington football team fans going, "No," because they just lost one of their favorite receivers from their team. So I'm very intrigued to see what he does in the preseason
Who was
and in
it
training
again?
camp. Cam Sims. I
Cam
believe
Sims.
he's going to be number 81, but I could be wrong there.
Hmm.
Actually, yeah, it says right here he's number 81. And he's kind of a taller receiver. He seems like a deep threat, but also he might be a good end zone target.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I could see him being a backup outside receiver. Next comes DJ Turner, former undrafted free agent from I think 2 or 3 years ago, who has stuck around. He was our punt returner for a while. He's been on the 53-man roster a few times. And I like him, but there's probably going to come a time where somebody else beats him out, and that's a guy that's coming up in a few names from now. Next is Chris Lacey. I couldn't tell you a thing about him. Sorry. And then Trey Tucker. This would be the guy, 3rd-round pick, I think 100th overall this year. I didn't really care for the pick because I felt like we should have gone with a defender, but he is a speedy, shifty receiver. And he was part of the reason why I kind of theorized about Hunter Renfrow potentially being traded, because he's another slot receiver. He's not going to be playing on the outside. He's like 5'8" and 190 pounds. Like, he's not a big receiver at all,
Is Mac Hollins still on the team? Did you?
No, he left in free agency. He went to the Falcons. Yeah. And then the last receiver is Christian Wilkerson, which I recognize that name, but I couldn't tell you where it's from. I want to say he was with the Patriots, which would make sense, but I could be wrong. But Trey Tucker, for sure. Trey Tucker is just, post-draft, he's a guy that I'm very intrigued by, because if he could become this, explosive play, gadget player for us, that sounds cool to me, and if he could be our punt returner, kick returner, a very, again, versatile player. I like the sound of that, and I would expect him to make the roster. But I think there are probably 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 5 guys above him that I see making the roster. And when it comes down to it, when I eventually actually look at this roster and say, okay, who do I expect to make the 53? I don't know if I can see 6 receivers making this team on the regular, on the 53-man roster. It's close. It's either 5 or 6.
I think 6 is a good number because of special teams.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you have to figure that you want a guy probably designated for punt returns and kick returns.
Mhm.
Although teams are probably just going to do a bunch of touchbacks anyway this
Yeah.
season.
I'm not going to do many projections or anything right now, but if I had to guess, it would be Devontae, Jacoby Myers, Hunter Renfro, DeAndre Carter, Cam Sims, and Trey Tucker. I think Philip Dorsett and Keelan Cole probably don't make the regular season roster. I could see them being like camp bodies in a way, kind of teaching the younger guy, specifically Trey Tucker, kind of the ins and outs.
All right, all right. Now let's move on to the tight ends for the Raiders.
Yes.
This I'm actually pretty interested in.
Yeah. So no more Darren Waller, no more Foster Moreau. Happy to say that Foster Moreau actually signed with the Saints. After the cancer scare. So
What
it seems
about
like he's
Clive
doing good.
Walford? Is he still on the team? No, I'm just playing.
That was
A very long time ago.
2016. Yeah. So leading off the tight ends, we have Austin Hooper, free agent signing, formerly with the Titans. I want to say the Browns. I'm not sure which other teams. And I really did like the signing at the time. Obviously, this was before the draft, so I felt like he was one of the few starting caliber tight ends out there. Granted, I wouldn't say he's a top end starter, but he's a good, good, solid, respectable starter to have. And then for me, right behind him is Michael Mayer, the second round tight end.
Mm-hmm.
And I expect Michael Mayer to supplant him by the end of the season.
I expect Michael Mayer to probably supplant him early on. I don't know. I just for whatever it is, I think you sent me a couple of videos about Michael Mayer, and I think he looked like a great blocker. And if he's going to be able to catch passes from Jimmy Garoppolo, hopefully they're accurate. No, I mean I say that because I've seen Jimmy throw some like hospital balls,
Dude,
and
I've
that could
been
make
a
or break
huge
somebody's career.
I've been a huge critic of Jimmy on the Niners, so it's kind of a hilarious. I would say slap in the face, but it's a hilarious
It's your problem now.
turn of events. Yeah, that he's
No,
now on the Raiders. Yeah.
yeah. It feels like just yesterday we were having that debate. And I think we were playing catch in the street in front of my house, and we were debating on whether Jimmy Garoppolo or Derek Carr was better. And I think I was telling you I thought Jimmy was better at the time. I've since changed my stance. But better for the team right now. Right now with no practice in training camp, it's hard to say Jimmy, but I ultimately was thinking that Garoppolo is going to bring a different culture into the locker room, which I think is needed. Yeah, I mean, he's coming at a much better price than Derek Carr is. But yeah, what were you going to say about being a Jimmy critic?
Oh, I mean, that was all I really had to say about being a Jimmy critic, but I do agree that I don't know if this is exactly how you said it, but I do think Jimmy is. I think if he's healthy, he's better for this team right now. I think that. I mean, actually, it's funny. I really don't want to go on a big tangent about Derek Carr and stuff, but he did come out recently and say that he didn't give the Raiders his best last season, and he regrets that. And I thought that was interesting. I'm not going to go into it too deep, but I'm curious what he means by that,
Well, I mean, what's he supposed to say? Well, I mean, I guess he could say nothing, but like, what's he going to say?
I'm assuming he was asked a question by a beat reporter, and I mean, he's on the Saints. He doesn't have to talk about the Raiders. He could just say, I'm going to talk about the Saints today, I'm focused on the Saints, but
Yeah,
instead wherever it was, he said, I really regret not giving the Raiders my best last season, like something along those lines. And it's like, interesting, because last year was a colossal failure, you know, and a lot of fans put all of the blame on Josh McDaniels, and I can't blame them, but I don't think Derek Carr is blameless in that, you know. So if
yeah,
he's admitting that he didn't give his best that he could have, you know,
yeah. So when does he decide that he's going to give his best?
I think he kind of made it sound like there might have been things off the field and stuff that he was kind of focusing on, something like that. I don't know. I don't know why he didn't give his best, because he always comes off to me like the guy that would, you know. So I
Okay,
just found that interesting that he said that.
I think there's a difference between giving your best and the Raiders getting his best. I would I would like to think that the Raiders just didn't get his best, and that would probably be a better way to word it. Not giving your best seems like it's an effort issue.
Right. That would be unacceptable in a professional level, you know.
Yeah.
Um, Especially at a quarterback. Like,
But if
that's
he's
just
got
why.
stuff going on and he gave all that he could, given the circumstances that he's in, I think that's different.
Yeah.
But
I think
one thing
I
I want to say real quick about you and I are hesitant to say that Jimmy's better for this team right now because I think I've definitely said that. I will say Jimmy will bring a different culture, and the Raiders need a different culture.
right. No, I
It could be
agree.
better or it could be worse. We'll find out. But something had to change, and they made a change. So
Yeah. Well, I think the last thing on Derek Carr, I'm so sorry. I kind of thought about it. Like, I remember seeing somebody comment about that, and it was something along the lines of, "Man, this sure sounds like he was essentially butthurt about how everything happened with John Gruden, and then Josh McDaniels coming in as the new coach." Like, I wouldn't be shocked if him saying that he didn't give his best is essentially due to him being upset about everything that happened with Gruden, because he was really close to him, and I think he felt really comfortable in his system, and then he just midseason is ousted, you know, granted for proper reasons, but it's another, again, like I said about Darnold compared to Carr, like shitty circumstances for Carr. There comes a point, I mean, he literally cried in a press conference. He was literally crying last season because he was just so upset. It's like every single year, besides 2016, he breaks his fucking leg. Every single year, he had a shitty circumstance. It's like, how many years of that? I don't care how religious you are. How long will that take to break a guy? So maybe he finally just fucking broke, and he was like, it's clear that McDaniels does not believe in him, probably early on, and it was clear in the wording of his contract that he wasn't going to last after last season. So he probably said, what am I doing this for? Right? Maybe.
mhm.
Anyways, to carry on with the tight ends, OJ Howard is the third tight end on the roster. He was a free agent signing. Um, I expect him to be a camp body. I don't really. He might make the team, but he didn't do anything for the Texans. He's a former first round pick, very highly, projected type of guy for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but didn't really amount to much. Got beat out relatively quickly.
Mhm.
Um, Fourth on the roster at tight end is Jesper Horsted. Um, I can't tell you his exact background, but I know he was with the team last year, maybe the past 2 years, and he's a sleeper to make this team and possibly even make a little difference here and there in the regular season. I could see him being the third tight end over OJ Howard. Fifth and sixth, you got Cole Fotheringham and John Samuel Schenker. Fotheringham, I don't know. I can't tell you if he was a undrafted free agent this year or last year. And then John Samuel Schenker was undrafted this year.
Well, it sounds like the previous guy that you mentioned probably comes from a family that's rich in pig farms.
Lots of pig fathers making ham.
Yeah. So for those of you who might be like new to watching this show, I make some pretty bad dad puns sometimes. So just
Well,
either get used to it or get lost. No, I'm just playing.
yeah. So, I mean, that's it for tight end. We can move on to the offensive line and wrap this up.
And then the main event.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So offensive line for the Raiders. I mean, just before I get into it, like they caught a lot of shit last year, especially on at the right tackle position and like right guard. And I really do believe that they picked it up and got better and better as the season went on. I think that this offensive line coach, I believe his name is Carmen Brasillo, but I could be totally off. He's done a good job with this unit, and they're not. It's not a very well-known unit. Besides this first guy I'm going to talk about, Colton Miller at left tackle, former first-round pick for John Gruden, probably the only first-round pick other than Josh Jacobs that has worked out for this team under John Gruden. Next up, I'm kind of throwing the backup left tackles and right tackles, maybe a little mixed in, so bear with me. Under Colton Miller, I have Brandon Parker. I can see him being the swing tackle if he's healthy. Last year, he was the projected starting right tackle, but he tore his ACL during training camp. And then below Brandon Parker, I have Justin Herron, and couldn't tell you much about him.
I was just laughing because Parker. I started thinking about
Spider Menace.
Yeah, Spider-Man 2 scene.
Oh shit, dude. Left guard, we have Dylan Parham. Dylan Parham could totally be the starting right guard. I have no clue. I don't think anybody does, other than probably the coaching staff. He came out of college as a right guard, and when they announced his card, they said he was a center. So another versatile player. We'll see where he ends up, but right now I would say he's the starting left guard because that's what he ended up being last year. Mm-hmm. Next up is Jordan Meredith, and then below him is, I shouldn't say below him, and then is Vitaly Gurman. I don't have much to say about them, but I can say that of all these backups that I'm going to mention, I hope that somebody in the preseason jumps out, and clearly shows like, oh, that guy needs to be on this roster,
Mm-hmm. All those rookies that you mentioned, they are also undrafted, right?
Which rookies?
Didn't you mention that there were the Raiders didn't sign any undrafted rookies?
Yeah, no, there was a undrafted rookie tight end.
No, I'm talking about for the offensive line, because I know they didn't draft any linemen.
There's just I think when they came out of the draft, they had like only 8 to 12 roster spots open, so they didn't have many undrafted free agents, but they do have some on the offensive line. They're going to be towards the end of this.
I just want to apologize. I keep yawning. For those of you guys who might be watching this video at like a later date, like maybe I splice it up and post it. It is 12:30, so we're bearing in there, but we're getting through just fine. Yep. Mike, any lasting things that you want to say about the offensive line before we move on to our rankings?
Yeah, I do, because I didn't even get to center yet.
Yeah, that's
I
the
was
show. That's the
yeah.
show. And go ahead.
I, I do want to answer your question though about the undrafted free agents. I looked this up. It looks like they got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 undrafted free agents, and most of them are on defense. I see one offensive guard, which I'll mention in a sec, and one offensive tackle, one tight end, and that's it on offense. Everything else is a defender.
It's fucking hilarious. Yeah,
Yeah.
I did want to say something about the
Yeah.
offensive line.
Mike, you want to wrap this up? Well, I
Yeah,
will once I get past center,
yeah,
right guard, and right tackle.
yeah. I will once you let me talk.
Yeah. Fucking Niner fan. No,
Yeah,
but
we just don't get it, dude.
yeah. At center we have Andre James returning for I think his third season, maybe fourth with the Raiders. He got to get a second contract with the Raiders when he was, I think, under John Gruden, and he's stuck around with Josh McDaniels. So good for him. And he played really well last year. There was a lot of speculation that Dylan Parham was kind of going to eventually replace him, specifically this season, but that's not happening this year. And then Hronis Grasu. His name starts with the H. Hronis Grasu. Can't tell you much there. But backup center. Right guard. Right guard, we just actually the most recent free agent signing for the Raiders is Greg Van Roten. That's what I'm going to say his last name because there's no way it's Rotten. It's spelled Roten. Greg Van Roten. I think he was with the Bills last year. I don't expect him to be like a very great starter, but if he ends up being the starter right guard, he'll be serviceable at best, I think. That's what the vibe I got from what I had heard. Below him, Alex Bars returning for I think his second season with the Raiders. He was signed late in the offseason last year and just stuck around on the 53-man roster for the Raiders last year. Started a few games, so it's another name in the possibility to be a starter at right guard.
Mm-hmm.
And then after him is Natani Muti, which is a very interesting name. He went to Fresno State, I'm pretty sure. And he was an undrafted free agent with the Broncos. And I think he was playing there for a few years, mostly practice squad guy. And then last year we took him off of the Broncos practice squad. We nabbed him, and
you claimed him.
Yeah, that's the more official word. And they kept.
I like nabbed.
Yeah. But I think the rule with taking a player off of another team's practice squad is they have to stay on the 53-man roster for at least 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like week 14, so they just kept him on the 53 for the rest of the season. And then in the offseason, they had to re-sign him. They did to a 1-year deal, as I think it's a 1-year deal. So I think they like him. They like what they saw. And a lot of Raider fans think he's very much in the running to be the starting right tackle. I don't know. I haven't seen anything. Never seen him play. So we'll see. I'd love for this guy to come out and be this, like you say, bully. I'd love for him to be a bully and just.
How big is he?
Be a guy. Pretty sure he's a big guy. I don't know his exact size. I could look it up if you want, but and then the last guy I'll talk about is McClendon Curtis. He's an undrafted free agent. He might be from Chattanooga, but I could be wrong. Let me search him up. McClendon Curtis. Yep, he played college football at UT Chattanooga. I think he was a guy in the 7th round that people expected to be drafted, and he went undrafted, and the Raiders picked him up. And he's another guy that a lot of people think has a good shot at starting a right guard because our right guard position is that bad. But at the same time, I named 4 names that can all start. Like, you can look at it in a bad way of like, well, they're all not that proven to be good. Or you can say, well, one of them can rise up and prove to be worth starting. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, I mean, well, obviously somebody's going to win the position, but I mean, hopefully the Raiders have somebody who can be a suitable right guard, um, because the Raiders play in a division with Chris Jones. Is Frank Clark still on the Chiefs?
No, I think he's a
No.
free agent right now.
Oh, I mean, Chris Jones is a pretty good D tackle, and you guys play him twice a year. You have to. I mean, Joey
Cool.
Bosa doesn't necessarily go against any guards, but I mean, all it takes is one bad offensive lineman to really bring back an O line, because I mean, it just throws off the timing of everything, and
Yep.
you know, you're as good as your weakest link, and I think that really holds true with offensive line. So, if I mean, especially with Garoppolo potentially being the quarterback, you got to get him some protection, and not
Yeah.
for the porn stars.
Yeah.
Well, for those two, but
Yeah. No, yeah. Natani Muti is 6'3", 315. So he's a big boy.
yeah,
Not overly
I'm like,
tall,
when I think of bullies, I think of like huge. You know what I mean? Like
Trent
big,
Brown.
like Trent Brown,
Yeah.
Trent Williams. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we
I'll finish
ready
it
to
off
move?
with
Oh,
I'll finish it off with right tackle. Right
Oh.
tackle.
oh
But
shit.
I agree. I'm definitely trying to get out of here, out of this segment.
Yeah.
Right tackle, just really quickly. Jermaine Elamanior. I did it again, dude. I did it again. Fuck. Somebody called me out in the comments, and I was laughing my ass off, and I just fucking did it without even thinking. Jermaine Eluemunor. That is how you pronounce his
Illuminor?
name. Eluemunor. It's spelled Eluemunor.
I should just title this part
Manure.
Mike
Illuminor.
struggles. Mike struggles to pronounce Illuminor. No,
Illuminor. Because
Illuminor.
last time I said Jermaine Illuminor, like
No,
really
you said
quick.
Illuminor.
Illuminor. Dude, I'm losing it.
And
Correct.
then I
and
went,
then you.
Illuminor. I thought the guy in the comments, I thought he was talking about me, saying like, I
No.
never heard Illuminor, pronounced that way. I thought he was talking about me, like, Illuminor.
Yeah. Right.
You think
and then
you think he was talking about you?
100%, it had to be. Because
Probably,
said
because I think the he timestamped it, and it was like right as you were about to pronounce it.
Yeah, exactly. And it was funny because you said it the first time and I didn't understand you, the opening
Yeah.
one. And I was like, yeah.
Is that how you pronounce it?
I said like however you pronounce it, and like you did no. Open the door. Yeah, I was like, oh my god. So yeah, sometimes pronunciations are hard. I was laughing at you earlier when you were trying to pronounce like a backup receiver. Pronunciations. See, exactly. It's like you just said, it's 12:30.
It's almost 12:40.
Yeah. So you have Jermaine Illuminor, and then you have Thayer Munthard, who was a 7th round pick last year, who was the guy that was alternating with Illuminor in the first like 4 weeks of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Just the two of them switching off, starting in the middle of games, and then finally Illuminor earned the right to start for the rest of the season, and I think he succeeded. And he's back on a new deal, so I'm good with it. It's really, to me, I don't know what to think about these backups, but if they can figure out the right guard position, I think there's potential here. I think Jimmy Garoppolo is a quick passer. If they can get the offense down to a lot of, quick routes,
like
quick,
dink and dunk.
yeah, first read West Coast offense sort of thing. Like this can be a very efficient offense. And if they can have that happen, then it's going to be dependent on the defense. Sorry, two more names: Justin Murray, Dalton Wagner. Dalton Wagner, undrafted free agent this year. He was the highest paid undrafted free agent in all of the NFL. I'm fairly positive.
Hmm.
So for some reason, they really wanted him. In fact, the last thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to search up his height and weight because I'm pretty sure he
Is a bully.
Yeah. So Dalton Wagner. There we go. 6'8", 320. So same weight, but 5 more inches. He's a tall offensive lineman at the tackle position.
It's pretty good. I don't know. I think, oh man, if I was a quarterback, and I've never played quarterback, so I really couldn't tell you, I would probably want shorter offensive linemen so I can see. It would probably be easier to see over them. Like I can't imagine Kyler Murray trying to peek over a 6'8", tackle.
I think that's why the guards
Or
and
Bryce
centers
Young.
tend. Yeah, I think that's why the guards and centers tend to be the smaller linemen than the
Mhm.
tackles, because the tackles are off to your side, either protecting your blind side or right in front of you, whereas the guards and center are in your field of view. So I think that's why.
Yeah.
So, but that's it for me on the position breakdowns.